Hello everyone, Interact back here again with another episode of Entity Education. In this episode, we're going to be covering one of my favorite movie franchises' killer, and another killer who is multiple people, Billy, Stu, Mickey, Roman, Charlie, and Jill,
actually,
probably better known as...
They didn't get the rights to that. I'm sorry. They didn't get the rights to that.
Sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, they made it an original killer, but
they did what?
It's still Ghostface.
Oh, okay, hold on, let me just... okay, here we go. So, apparently, sorry about that, we'll be covering, Danny Jed Olsen Johnson, who is apparently better known as the Ghostface. Sorry about that mistake. As always, there will be timestamps up on the screen right now, and also down in the description of the video if you want to skip around to certain sections. So let's get started where we always do, with a quick look at the base stats for Ghostface. And wow, wouldn't you know it, he has the default base stats. Movement speed of 115% or 4.6 meters per second, and a terror radius of 32 meters. He's also average height instead of the normal tall height, so I guess that's something slightly different. Now let's get into some details about Ghostface's power, Night Shroud. By pressing mouse 2 by default, PC of course, you will enter into your Night Shroud, which will make your terror radius 0, as well as removing your red stain. You will also gain the ability to stalk survivors, as well as lean around objects. Stalking is done differently from Myers, however. Your stalking is applied only to the survivor that you are actually stalking at any given moment, although you can stalk all of these survivors at once if they are all standing near each other. And your stalk progress will be denoted by a filling circle over their statuses in the bottom left of the screen. Survivors are unable to see any stalking progress that they have applied to them at any time, until they hit full. Your stalk progress will not decay over any period of time, but will instead be reduced immediately to 0 if you hit the survivor with an attack. Swinging at any time during Night Shroud, even if you miss the hit, will instantly break you out of Night Shroud and put it on its cooldown. Night Shroud has a cooldown of 30 seconds by default, but it will last basically indefinitely until you either swing your weapon, get stunned by a pallet, or are revealed by a survivor, which I will be covering in probably too much detail in a few minutes, because honestly it kind of needs its own section to explain. While you are stalking, you will be slowed by 50% of your current movement speed. When you are actually stalking a survivor, you'll be slowed by an extra 20%, bringing you down to 70% of your current movement speed, which is probably extremely slow. You are also able to stalk survivors from a distance of up to 40 meters away, and this once again functions differently from Michael Myers. Instead of Myers' odd curve of stalking survivors based on how close you are, Ghostface instead stalks at a fixed rate, meaning it will take you 5 seconds to fully stalk a survivor, whether they are 40 meters away or 4 meters away. If you are leaning and stalking, you will gain stalk progress at 2 times your normal speed, meaning it will take you only 2.5 seconds to fully stalk a survivor while leaning by default. That's great and all, you might be saying, but what happens if I fully stalk a survivor? Well, glad you asked. If you fully stalk a survivor, they will become marked and suffer from the exposed status effect for 45 seconds by default. You will be able to tell how much longer they have because they will have a red circle that will slowly tick down on their status icon in the bottom left once again. Them being exposed, of course, means that you will be able to instantly down them with a single M1, making stalking survivors to a full mark extremely powerful. Ghostface also has a secondary power, crouching. By pressing left control, PC of course, you can crouch down and be just a slight bit stealthier by lowering your profile and your hitbox lower down to the ground. While crouched, however, much like the pig, you will move at only 90% speed, or 3.6 meters per second, which is slower than a survivor running. Oh boy, alrighty, let's get into the mess that is Ghostface's detection. I'm going to open this discussion of how this works by saying that the code only really gave me the most basic of impressions of how Ghostface's detection worked, so I did actually have to do some testing independently of the code, meaning that you should take everything I'm about to say with just a pinch of salt. This is basically just how I believe it works based on what the code says and my personal testing. I'm about 98% sure that this is how it works, but there may still be a few things I haven't figured out. It's kind of just a mess anyways, let's just kind of dive into it. Let's start off by talking about the very basic things that probably everyone already knows about Ghostface's detection. While you're in Night Shroud, if a survivor looks at you for 1.5 seconds, you will be broken out of your Night Shroud, as well as get a Killer Instinct notification on the survivor who revealed you for 2 seconds. You will also get these little squiggly line things telling you what direction you're being revealed from, meaning you can have some idea of where you're actually being spotted from and possibly try and break line of sight by crouching, moving around a corner, something like that, if you want to maintain your Night Shroud. Survivors are only able to spot you while they are within a default range of 32 meters from you, meaning that you do have an 8-meter buffer where you can stalk them and they can't reveal you, and that they can't just spot you from across the entire map if it's something super open. Now let's talk about some things that people may not have known about, and get a whole lot deeper into this whole rabbit hole of how it works, and discuss the code and my findings. Let's start with the first and possibly the most annoying part of Ghostface's detection from a killer point of view. This is what the code refers to as being discerned and out of sight. It considers you discerned whenever you're getting the musical cue and a survivor is looking at you, meaning you're actually being spotted. You're obviously out of sight whenever you are not being spotted, either because you've broken line of sight or just no one's looking at you. There is an odd part of the code that might explain a whole lot of frustrations you may have experienced while playing Ghostface. I know it kind of cleared up a lot of things for me. There is a 0.3 second timer that has to pass before you actually go from the discerned state to the out of sight state. If you're wondering still what that means, it means that you have to be out of line of sight for survivors for at least 0.3 seconds before you will actually stop being revealed. This means, I believe, that if a survivor has been looking at you for even just slightly over 1.2 seconds, say 1.25 seconds, and you duck behind a wall that they couldn't possibly see you at all, you're still going to end up getting revealed. That kind of explained for me, and I hope it helps explain for you why you've probably been detected behind a wall and you've been like, behavior, what the fuck is going on? I'm behind a wall, how can they still detect me? That kind of illuminates a lot of frustrations I've had, at least. So with that out of the way, let's talk more about the way the actual detection works for survivors. Survivors have what is referred to as a visibility zone, where if they have a Ghostface model in it and are within 32 meters of him, he will start getting revealed and you will start to hear that musical cue. This visibility zone is defined in the code as being 26% of the survivor's overall screen region. I'll put up a diagram that shows what a 26% screen region, starting from obviously the center of the screen, looks like. It's kind of a elongated bubble, obviously, because the way that monitors work and everything, they're not squares, they're rectangles. I'll put some examples up on the screen of when he is and isn't being detected, and then put up the overlay of the visibility zone to kind of show you, I guess, an example of why maybe you're like, I can see him right there, but he's not getting detected. It's because he's maybe not in the visibility zone. Keep in mind also that any objects with hitboxes will block a survivor's detection of Ghostface, meaning that even the hitbox of a survivor themselves, as this hilarious background footage will show, can actually block detection of Ghostface even if you're literally standing right next to him. And if, hold on. Did I just start spotting you because Dwight turned so much that it... Holy shit.
Yep.
What the actual fuck? That's, However, survivors do need to have at least 30% of Ghostface's character model in their visibility zone to begin detecting him. This is defined in the code, meaning that they can't just see you through a solid object because you're in the visibility zone. That'd be just kind of ridiculous. Now you might be thinking that 30% sounds like kind of a lot. No wonder you're getting spotted so easily. Well, based on my testing, it only actually counts the hitbox for your upper body as being detected, so 30% of your upper body, your arms, your torso, your head, your chest, etc. This means that basically your legs just don't count at all for your hitbox for detection. I assume this was done to make it so that crouching didn't make it really weird for his detection hitbox, but that's just kind of speculation on my part. You'd have to actually ask behavior. It also seems that if you're leaning and stalking, your hitbox kind of just, it doesn't move, it just kind of extends outwards for where you're leaning, meaning that obviously while leaning, you're not just super hard to detect, you're still about as easy as you would be normally if you weren't leaning. Once again, I assume this is kind of just done for the purposes of balancing, because you do get twice the stalk rate while leaning, and you know, if you're just poking your head out, they obviously can't see 30% of you, and you're stalking them twice as fast, and that would be maybe a little imbalanced. Obviously, crouching is a pretty decent way of hiding your hitboxes from survivors, since you can just kind of crouch behind something and hide pretty much a decent amount of your upper body behind, say, a barrel or a hay bale or something. Just keep in mind that survivors do have third-person cameras, meaning they can pretty much just kind of peek over objects or around objects if they're close enough to you, which leads to maybe some more frustrations in terms of getting detected, but that's just kind of the way the game works. I hope that this helped to clear up at least some of the absolute nonsense that is Ghostface's detection model. Obviously, I don't have all the answers, these are just things that I could find in the code and find through my own testing. I hope that it maybe helped illuminate a little bit of why you're like, hey, I shouldn't be spotted, I'm hidden, but maybe you weren't hidden enough, I don't know. Let's move on now to the add-ons that you'll be able to equip while playing Ghostface and explain what they do. We start off at the common tier with Philly. Philly is the nickname for Philadelphia, a town in Pennsylvania. I've been there a few times for Magic the Gathering tournaments. They have really sweet cheesesteaks. You should check them out if you're ever there. Hold on, what were we talking about again? Oh, yeah, Dead by Daylight. Okay, so the add-on Philly will slightly increase the rate at which survivors become marked while you are not leaning. This means a reduction in the amount of time required to stalk a survivor up to being fully marked by 0.25 seconds, bringing it down to only 4.75 seconds for a full mark while not leaning. Following that, we have a fairly normally named add-on, Wall-Eyes Matchbook. Wall-Eyes Matchbook will slightly increase the recovery of your Night Shroud. This means a reduction to your recharge time of 4 seconds, bringing it down to 26 seconds to fully recharge your Night Shroud. Next up, we have Headline Cutouts. Headline Cutouts will slightly increase your movement speed while stalking. This means a 10% increase to your movement speed while stalking, making it a lot less punishing to walk while stalking survivors. And the final common add-on is Cheap Cologne. Cheap Cologne will slightly increase the duration of survivors remaining marked. This means an increase to their marked timer of 5 seconds, bringing it up to 50 seconds total. Now we move on to the uncommon tier. We start off with Telephoto Lens. Telephoto Lens will slightly increase the rate at which survivors become marked while you are not leaning, as well as slightly increase the duration of survivors remaining marked. This means a reduction in time required to stalk a survivor up to being marked while not leaning of 0.25 seconds, bringing it down to 4.75 seconds, and an increase to their marked duration time of 5 seconds, bringing it up to 50 seconds total. Next up, we have Reusable Cinch Straps. Reusable cinch straps will slightly increase your movement speed while crouched. This means an increase to your crouch movement speed of 3.2%, bringing it up to 93.2% speed while crouched. Then we have Olsen's Journal. Olsen's Journal will moderately increase your movement speed while stalking. This means a 20% increase to your movement speed while stalking, making it, once again, a little bit less punishing. Following that, we have a few more of Olsen's things, starting with Olsen's Address Book. Olsen's Address Book will moderately increase the recovery of your Night Shroud. This means a reduction to your recharge time of 6 seconds, bringing it down to 24 seconds to fully recharge Night Shroud. And our final uncommon add-on, and something that does not belong to Olsen, is Marked Map. Marked Map will slightly increase the duration of Killer Instinct on the survivor who reveals you out of your Night Shroud. This is a 1 second increase to the duration of the Killer Instinct bubble notification thingy, bringing it up to 3 seconds total. Moving on to our rare tier of add-ons, we start off with a few more of Olsen's things. Olsen's Wallet. Olsen's Wallet will considerably increase your movement speed while stalking. This means a 30% increase to your movement speed while stalking. Quick note, by the way, the flavor text says that this wallet contains $30. So Behavior, I believe, is legally obligated to actually give you $30 for each one of these add-ons that you pick up in your Blood Web. Just make sure to message Not Queen, Peanuts, or McCoat, or somebody on the team for your $30 redeemed per add-on. I hope that does not get me banned. Moving on, we have Leather Knife Sheath. Leather Knife Sheath will moderately increase your movement speed while crouched. This means an increase to your crouch movement speed of 6.5%, bringing you up to 96.5% speed while crouched. Next up, we have one of my favorites, Lasting Perfume. Lasting Perfume will moderately increase the duration of survivors remaining marked. This means an increase to their marked timer of 10 seconds, bringing it up to 55 seconds. Following up on that, we have Knife Belt Clip. Knife Belt Clip will moderately increase the rate at which survivors will become marked while you are stalking them and not leaning. This means a reduction in the time to stalk a survivor up to being marked by 0.5 seconds, bringing it down to 4.5 seconds to fully stalk a survivor while not leaning. And the final rare add-on, and probably my favorite add-on, is Chewed Pen. Chewed Pen will considerably increase the recovery of your Night Shroud. This means a reduction to your recharge time of 8 seconds, bringing it down to 22 seconds to fully recharge your Night Shroud. Now moving on to Ghostface's very rare add-ons, we have Victim's Detailed Routine. Victim's Detailed Routine will moderately increase the duration of Killer Instinct on the survivor that reveals you out of Night Shroud, as well as moderately decreasing the detection range to reveal you out of your Night Shroud. This means a 1.5 second increase to your Killer Instinct bubble aura notification thing, bringing it up to 3.5 seconds, as well as a reduction of 4 meters to the range to reveal you out of Night Shroud, bringing it down to only 28 meters. Next up, we have Night Vision Monocular. Night Vision Monocular will considerably increase the rate at which survivors will become marked while you stalk them and are not leaning. This means a reduction in the time to stalk a survivor up to being marked while not leaning by 0.75 seconds, bringing it down to 4.25 seconds total. Following that, we have Drop Leg Knife Sheath. I don't know what that is, but okay. Drop Leg Knife Sheath will considerably increase your movement speed while crouched. This means that it will increase your movement speed while crouched by 9.7%, bringing you up to 99.7% speed while crouched. And the final very rare add-on for Ghostface is Driver's License. At least we know he is licensed to drive a car, as well as apparently murder people. Driver's License will considerably decrease the detection range for survivors to reveal you out of your Night Shroud. This means a reduction of 8 meters to the range to reveal you out of your Night Shroud, bringing it down to only 24 meters. Now let's talk about Ghostface's ultra rare add-ons. As it seems to be the trend, one of them is really cool and interesting, and the other is just kind of like cool, I guess. The first and the interesting one is Ghostface Caught on Tape. Ghostface Caught on Tape will tremendously increase your stalking rate while leaning from cover, at the cost of tremendously reducing your stalking rate while not leaning from cover. This means that it will reduce the time it takes to stalk a survivor up to marked while leaning by 1 second, bringing it down to just 1.5 seconds to fully stalk somebody, at the cost of increasing the amount of time it takes to stalk them while you are not leaning by 0.75 seconds. If you are able to fully take advantage of this and only ever lean stalk people, this add-on is absolutely bonkers. Just make sure you're leaning, and the leans are a little, let's say, finicky to be nice. So, you know, it's a good add-on. It's definitely an ultra rare add-on. It's definitely extremely strong. It just kind of can be hit or miss. And Ghostface's final add-on, and his other ultra rare, is Outdoor Security Camera. Outdoor Security Camera will reveal the auras of all survivors outside of your terror radius for 4 seconds whenever a marked survivor is put into the dying state. This is pretty self-explanatory. It just kind of shows you the auras of all survivors who are outside of your terror radius when you stab someone who's marked. It just kind of does what it says on the tin, and it's kind of uninteresting, but neat nonetheless. Now let's get into the section of the video that might be one of the most heavily requested reasons for people wanting this Ghostface video: tips for how to play Ghostface. Honestly, he's fairly new in terms of killers in Dead by Daylight, so I'm not entirely certain that I found like the true 100% best way to play him, no clickbait. I'm not even sure that that's been found out by anyone yet, but only time will really tell in regards to that. I can give you my personal opinion on how I believe you should be playing the Ghostly Boy though, so let's just kind of jump into it. The main thing that I see a lot of Ghostface players not really respecting is how actually powerful Insta-Down truly is. Personally, in my opinion, this is all my opinion, I believe that you should be trying to stalk people to 99 as much as possible. And even if you get spotted early and say only get like 75% stalk on a survivor, don't really bother chasing them too much. Instead, if you see another survivor that you know you have 0% stalk on, go chase that survivor. This comes back to the fact that your stalk progress will only reset if you're hitting somebody. And you don't want to be wasting your time stalking people up to 80, 90% and then just hitting them and completely resetting your stalk progress. Especially if you're running at least one recharge time add-on, which is why I think Chewed Pen is probably my most used and favorite add-on for Ghostface. The time it will take you to just get your power back and then stalk them to exposed might actually be a shorter amount of time than hitting them once with a normal attack, letting them get that burst of speed, which potentially gets them to another loop, and then going through that loop again. Maybe they get to another one, you have to go through that one, and then you have to hit them a second time. Knowing which is really the proper choice of what to do, either to let them go so you can stalk them later, or chase them and then stalk them when your power comes up, or just hit them and give up on the stalk altogether, is a really tough decision, since it requires not only knowledge of your power's recharge time, but what loops are still up, if they have a safe pallet or window in the area that they might be able to make it in time before you could land that second hit, or whether you're going to be more efficient just stalking them. I don't know. It makes Ghostface kind of a headache to play, and this is going to sound really stupid to say, but it makes him kind of a cerebral killer, in my opinion, since there is kind of that metagame aspect of needing to know internally all these numbers. And trust me, I really do hate saying something that sounds as stupid as that, so just make sure you watch some Richard and Mortimer before you're playing Ghostface. Maybe do it while you're in the queue, since queue times are really, really long. And especially if you have a tattoo that is only for the ladies, and maybe some package of Szechuan sauce nearby, I think you'll do just fine playing Ghostface. Jokes aside, the other major thing is just that your stalk progress, once again, won't decay unless you actually hit them. This means that you can stalk injured survivors up a bit, and then when they heal later on, and you find them, you can pop into Ghost Shroud really quickly, and just mark them, making their healing just wasted time, because you instantly down them, right then and there. This can save you time not only in chases if you catch them, but you can also stalk survivors who are saving other survivors off of hooks. If you stalk them both up, and then you let the one that got unhooked to go, maybe with, even just 60% stalk on them. If you can stalk the survivor up to mark, you can down them. Then later on in the match, when you find that rescued survivor, you'll already have progress on them, and you can probably just quickly pop into your Ghost Shroud, lean, stalk them up to marked, and just down them again. If you're able to pull this off even just a few times in a match, you can keep the pressure up really, really high on survivors, and it might maybe be enough to make up for Ghostface's kind of lack of map pressure otherwise. A thing to keep in mind is that you do stalk at the same rate close up as you do when you're 40 meters away, and that leaning is way more efficient than stalking normally. You only get 45 seconds of marked duration once you fully stalk a survivor, so you don't want to be popping them into marked when you're 40 meters away, since running to catch up to them, you're already going to have burned off a fair chunk of that amount of time on their mark, and they're just going to have to go through maybe just one or two loops, and then you have to stalk them all over again. You want to try and pop survivors into marked as close as you can, but if you hear yourself getting revealed, you might have to just mark them when you're not right next to them, you're maybe 20-ish meters behind them. It's really something that you need to make the call on whether it's the right time to do it or not in the moment. And if they are 99% of the way marked, maybe just leave them alone and go and try and find another survivor. I can't stress how good insta-downs are, but I also can't stress that just leaving survivors might not be the right call. You might need to down them with 2 hits because you need the pressure. It comes down to a state of the game kind of thing, and it's why I hate saying it, but I think Ghostface requires a little bit of thinking put into him, and a little bit of planning almost. In case you haven't noticed, a whole lot of Ghostface's gameplay, in my opinion at least, comes down to basically just stalk management. It can be a really big pain in the ass, and you might be wondering, why would I do this when I could just be Myers and stalk people and it all is the same because I just get tier 3 and instantly down them? I don't know. Maybe you like Ghostface better, maybe you like Myers better. It's personal preference, I guess. You want to try and keep track of who is who while you're playing the game, so you're not super sloppy with your stalking, but if you run into 4 identical P3 blendettes, you're not going to be able to keep track of who the hell is who, and it's going to make your stalking really sloppy, and it's a huge pain in the ass sometimes. This does actually lead to kind of having a bit of metagame with Ghostface, since you're going to want to actually pay attention to the names of each survivor that you're playing against and who they're playing. Like maybe, the guy named Hardcore Joe is playing Quentin, and you see in the status icon down there, Hardcore Joe is stalked to 99. So when you see Quentin, you're like, hey, I can instantly down that guy. But if you see Claudette, who's named, OMG can't find me, or something, you don't have her stalked at all, so you're like, okay, I need to start stalking her. You just have to kind of pay attention in the lobby and figure out who the hell is playing who. If you hit someone, maybe on accident, that you've stalked to 99%, you've wasted a lot of your own time, which is something that as a killer you really need to avoid doing, especially on a killer that isn't as strong as the nurse or, spirit or whatever. Ghostface is not a stronger killer. He's a middle of the road-ish, I'd say. So you really do not want to be wasting your time if you can possibly avoid it. Something that you can do, especially if you're running recharge time add-ons, which is I cannot stress enough, recharge time add-ons, Chewed Pen, they're insanely good on Ghostface, is you can always use your Night Shroud in a pinch to just lose your tear radius and red stain to make mind gaming tiles and pallets just a whole lot easier. Or if you're extremely desperate, you can use it to kind of track where survivors are with the squiggly lines or the killer instinct notifications if survivors being really immersed. Because survivors kind of can't help themselves when it comes to detecting you out of Night Shroud, because they do understand that being instantly downed is kind of bad. You do need to pay attention to what direction those squiggly lines are showing up if you're trying to use it to track an immersed blendette or something. Survivors do get highlighted in white when you're stalking them, and you do have a 40-meter range on it, so if you get extremely desperate, you can use it to just kind of get pseudo auras on survivors that you can see from up to 40 meters. Just keep in mind that every second you're holding down the stalk button to look for a survivor, you're moving 50% slower. And every second that you're holding down the stalk button and you see the white aura of a survivor, you're moving 70% slower, which means you're not going to be able to cross the map while doing this, but it's desperate times, desperate measures, As I said, I feel like these methods should just be, you should keep them in the back of your mind if you're getting extremely desperate. Just keep them there, don't rely on them, but just know that they're there if you need them. You don't only have to use Night Shroud for its ability to stalk survivors. You can use it to just kind of have no tear radius and sneak around the map at full speed, or mind game survivors by dropping your red stain in your tear radius. Or maybe even get gen grabs or something, Ideally, you'd always be able to sneak up on a survivor, lean, stalk them, get them marked, instantly down them. Sometimes you just get a bad map, you'll get a corn map. Sometimes they'll have 4 objective obsessions and it just won't be happening. But you just want to kind of maximize your usage of Night Shroud as much as humanly possible to keep you out from just being a basic M1 killer who gets looped easily because you don't have anything to do with loops. You can kind of use crouch to mind game loops, but that's a really difficult technique, and you don't have a dash attack like Pig, so you can crouch to mind game loops, especially with Night Shroud, getting rid of your red stain. That's just something you'll have to get a whole lot of practice and a whole lot of feel for. But if you can get it down, that is actually an insanely good thing that Ghostface does have over, say, like a Trapper or a Wraith. Now let's talk about the teachable perks you'll be unlocking if you put your blood points into the spooky Ghostface boy. At level 30, you'll unlock the teachable for the perk I'm All Ears. I'm All Ears will make it so that if a survivor does a rushed action within 48 meters of you, they will have their aura revealed to you for 6 seconds. This has a cooldown of 60/50/40 seconds. A rushed action, in case you weren't aware, since I don't think they actually refer to them as rushed actions like literally anywhere else, means any action that a survivor would do while holding down the shift key or the run key, whatever it is on console, I don't know, and that would make a loud noise notification. So basically this means hopping in and out of lockers while holding shift, vaulting windows, or vaulting pallets while holding shift. Those are the only things that will actually trigger I'm All Ears. They actually it's the same thing as quick and quiet, so maybe they call them rushed actions there, I don't know. At level 35, you'll unlock probably his best perk, Thrilling Tremors. Thrilling Tremors will make it so that when you pick up a survivor, all generators not currently being worked on by a survivor will become blocked by the entity for 16 seconds and have their aura turn from red to white. This effect has a cooldown of 100/80/60 seconds. This can be valuable for not only blocking off generators after you've downed someone and are trying to take them to a hook, but also for tracking what generators are currently being worked on by other survivors, making it kind of like a budget barbecue in a sense. And finally, at level 40, you'll unlock the Teachable for the perk that I understand the least, Furtive Chase. Furtive Chase will make a survivor the obsession, as well as give you a token for each time that you hook your obsession, up to a maximum of 2/3/4 tokens. For each token you have, your terror radius while in a chase will be lowered by 4 meters. Whenever a survivor rescues your obsession from the hook, they will also become the new obsession. You will, however, lose all of your tokens if your obsession dies. This perk has a few interesting effects kind of bundled into it, but I can't actually find a reason why you'd ever actually want to run this unless you were trying to combo it with some other weird perks. But even then, I can't find like a powerful use case. Maybe I'm not just seeing the use case for it, maybe it's right in front of me and I'm just blind or something. Feel free to tell me in the comments why you'd ever want to run Furtive Chase if you want to, I guess. Now let's talk about some perk builds for Ghostface. As always, we'll start off with a perk build for newer players, assuming that they've only put points into Ghostface and therefore only have the base killer perks and his 3 teachable perks. Then move on to a meta build, follow it up with a that build, meaning a toxic build that isn't any fun to play against, and round it all out at the end with some good old-fashioned memes. Starting off with a new player build, your build might look something along the lines of this: Sloppy Butcher, Thrilling Tremors, Whispers, and I'm All Ears. Quite honestly, the last perk slot is kind of the hardest one to figure out, since there are only but so many decent base killer perks, and Ghostface's perks outside of Thrilling Tremors really aren't super fantastic. Sloppy Butcher and Thrilling Tremors will not only give you the ability to slow the match down, but will also give you some extra tracking ability, which will be further augmented by running Whispers. The last slot is really kind of whatever you want it to be. I'm All Ears can help you if you're running into a lot of people with like quick and quiet, or maybe you're just losing people because they're, vaulting over windows and they break line of sight and you're not really sure how the tile works because you're maybe newer. It can help you out if you're maybe not super confident in your chases, because it'll show you where they're going and help you, just know, oh hey, they're over there, let me just chase them down. If you're fine with not having that because you think you're okay with tiles, you can run something like Bitter Murmur. There's not really very many good standard killer perks, honestly. Now let's talk about the actual meta build for Ghostface. It's kind of a bit up in the air since he is newer. I have seen a lot of people just running kind of the standard M1 killer build because he is kind of a standard M1 killer. Barbecue and Chili, Hex Ruin, Enduring, and Spirit Fury. Personally, I've dropped Spirit Fury for Brutal Strength instead, since I find when survivors are marked and exposed, they tend to get like really squirrely and drop pallets early. So Brutal just kind of helps me chew through these pallets a bit faster. It's a little harder to get Spirit Fury to actually proc. I'm not entirely sure if there is a real meta build for Ghostface, since it seems not a lot of people actually play him at high ranks, since he does kind of have a lot of issues, and the new Freddy just came out, and well, let's just say that Freddy has a lot less issues and is a lot better. So instead, I'll kind of just be recommending a batch of perks that you might want to consider running on Ghostface, and talk a little bit about why I think they're pretty well suited for Ghostface's playstyle. Obviously, the 5 perks that I've already mentioned, Barbecue and Chili, Hex Ruin, Enduring, Spirit Fury, Brutal Strength, they're all very strong on pretty much every killer in the game. Ghostface isn't really an exception. Barbecue and Chili gives you extra BP, which is basically the best part of it, and will also give you an idea of where to head after hooking a survivor so you can keep your map pressure high. Hex Ruin is just the best slowdown perk in the game as long as it's actually up and active. Enduring is probably the best perk in the game for just not respecting pallets in the slightest and potentially sometimes getting free hits. Spirit Fury, pretty much you should only run if you're running Enduring. It pairs insanely well with Enduring to make pallet loops just kind of laughable every like third pallet loop, as long as you can actually get it to trigger. And Brutal Strength, as I said, helps you break pallets faster if survivors are dropping them early because they're afraid because they're marked. Let's talk about a few perks that you might want to consider as well. Whispers. Obviously, I recommend this on basically everyone. It's fantastic for finding survivors to stalk and knowing where you don't need to be, because Whispers is inactive, so you don't waste your time patrolling generators in that area. Ghostface's pressure depends a lot on knowing where the survivors are, so you can stalk them up to marked and down them instantly. So I believe that Whispers, being basically the best tracking perk in the game, is a strong choice for Ghostface for keeping you in the action as much as humanly possible. Shadowborn is an odd one, but it can be pretty nutty, since the increased FOV leads to an increase in the area that you're able to stalk in, obviously. The increased FOV while lean stalking, especially, can be pretty nutty as well, so kind of just be wary of actually running Shadowborn though, because you might not be able to stop once you've experienced having a larger FOV and being able to stalk people a lot easier. So it's just beware. A Nurse's Calling is a solid tracking perk for any killer in the game, just generally, and Ghostface, once again, not an exception. If you can find a healing survivor, or maybe even two, ideally, 2, 3, maybe all of them, you can get some stalk progress on them if you sneak up on them, and then either ambush them after they just finish healing, and they're marked, meaning that they'll have to heal again, and you've wasted a whole lot of their time, or maybe you just use it to find people who are already injured and just hit them with a basic M1, who knows. Discordance can be very helpful for finding multiple survivors to get that sweet, sweet stalky progress on. Just keep in mind that rank 1 of Discordance is actually the best rank of it. I know it doesn't make sense, but rank 1 is the best, just trust me. Try not to rank it up to rank 3 if you can avoid it. Save the Best for Last is always a solid perk choice on any killer that relies heavily on their M1 hits to down survivors, and you can somewhat mitigate the token loss if you mark your obsession before you actually hit them, which is always nice. Getting tokens can be slightly iffy if you're managing your stalk progress really well and you're just instantly downing everybody, but even just a few tokens is good enough because you'll really feel the decreased cooldown on your successful hits. Normally right now I'd cover a that build, meaning a toxic build that sucks all the fun out of any given match of Dead by Daylight, but considering the Ghostface is relatively new, and I think Behavior really learned their lesson after the whole Legion release debacle, they just kind of won't put anything too stupid in the game ever again, so let's just move on to the real reason people watch these videos: meme builds. The first meme build is going to be something along the lines of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'm workshopping both of the names for this one. They're honestly awful names. This one's pretty much just a pure meme build, since I'm honestly not sure if it's any good anyways, but at least you'll have fun with it, right? And that's kind of what we're here for. You're going to want to bring perks like Distressing, Unnerving Presence, Calorophobia, and Overcharge, or Overwhelming Presence, whatever you want. And then add-ons like Night Vision, Monocular, and Lasting Perfume, I guess. This way, when you're in Night Shroud, you'll be stalking them like you're normal Ghostface. But once they break you out of Night Shroud, you'll have a big terror radius and perks that will kind of punish them for making you have your terror radius by breaking you out of Night Shroud. Honestly, they'll probably just break you out of Night Shroud anyway, but on the off chance that they're like actually afraid of you having Overwhelming Presence and Overcharge and Calorophobia or whatever, you'll just be able to stalk them and instantly down them with Mark and whatever, I guess. I don't know, I think it's a cool concept at least. I just don't think it'll actually work. The other meme build that I could come up with is like a, wow, Ghostface's detection is so broken, Behavior, what the fuck did you do build. Once again, I really need to workshop these names before I actually say them, but whatever. Bring whatever perks you want to run, and then the add-ons are going to be Victim's Detailed Routine and Driver's License. This will drop your detection range down to a tiny 20 meters, meaning you'll be able to stalk survivors who believe that they're just kind of staring right at you, but for some reason they just can't seem to detect you. You do miss out on running a lot of the stronger add-ons like Chewed Pen or the Mark Duration add-ons or, other ones. But it can be funny to see survivors just kind of panicking when they're just kind of having a staring contest with you and nothing is happening except you're marking them and about to instantly down them by stabbing them in the back. And that's it for this episode of Entity Education covering Ghostface. So a lot of people have asked me, what are you going to do when you're done with the Entity Education videos covering all the killers that are currently out? Obviously a new killer comes out every 3 months or so, So I'll make videos on them. Obviously, don't expect them to be coming out day one or anything. I'll do some PTB stuff to kind of get a feel for the killer, to maybe see if I can have some idea of some tips to give out. They might be more along the lines of the Freddy video, though, honestly. I do want to try and get them out maybe like 1 to 2 weeks-ish after the killer actually comes out. But that'll be kind of to be determined as the game goes on and the killers actually come out and I see what my schedule looks like. Another thing is I'm working on setting up a Discord. I'll have a link to it whenever I actually get it set up. What I want to do is I want to, in keeping with the learning and educational aspect of this channel, I want to take viewer-submitted videos of them just playing a normal game of killer and kind of go through and critique things and point out mistakes that they've made, maybe areas they could improve, things like that, if that makes sense, to try and help you guys improve your killer gameplay, basically. I think the Discord will be pretty integral for having submissions for that, and I'll try and do that on like a weekly or maybe bi-weekly basis. I'll have a video coming out probably pretty soon that I'll have my own gameplay that I'll show you and critique and talk about where I made mistakes, where I can improve, what things I did wrong. And I have a few people who typically view my Twitch stream that I'm going to try and get videos from as well to kind of kickstart that while I do get the Discord set up, because I have no idea what the hell I'm doing when it comes to setting up a Discord. So that's kind of the future. I will probably be working on stuff for Survivor as well, just kind of demystifying the numbers behind what add-ons do for certain items and what perks do and all that nonsense. I'm also planning on doing like a Mythbusters type thing. Once again, the Discord will be integral for that, so I can take commonly held myths and test them and see what the hell happens. I know that I've rambled a lot, but this is kind of the last video in the series until the next killer comes out, and I have a lot of plans for this channel. It's not going anywhere. I do plan on still making what I believe and hopefully you agree with is kind of high-ish quality videos, being educational. I just want to kind of give back to the community and help out as much as I can. So look forward to that. Thank you to everybody who supports me in these videos. I get a lot of comments being like, why do you have so few subs? I think I have way too many subs, but that could just be imposter syndrome. I don't know. I'm rambling. I'm going to stop. I love you all. Thank you very much for watching these videos, for leaving nice comments, for supporting me. I'll see you in the next video covering whoever the hell the next killer is, because I don't know anymore. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.